So I know the series has been about mental health so far, and covered a lot of negative aspects of mental health in the military, but I just wanted to clear up that anybody that either didn't know me or maybe you didn't watch some of the earlier episodes, I just need to clear up that this isn't a negative view of the military, okay? Those experiences that I spoke about have been just a couple of seconds of bad experiences whilst on tour. The rest of my military experience was incredible. I absolutely loved it. I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, was to join the military. I do believe that if you are under the age of anywhere 28 and you're a healthy guy and you aren't too sure where you're heading in your life, especially coming into your 30s or something, you are still very young. People think 30s old, but it's not, you know. I think you're in a very good position to join the military, and it will do you absolute wonders. I think it'd probably be one of the best decisions anybody ever makes if they join the military. You don't have to do 24 years, you know. You can commit to doing just 3 years, 11 months is a minimum service. And I just think it's an incredible thing to do, especially after anything like COVID, or if you've lost your job, or you're not sure what to do, or you're thinking about retrading, or you're just not too sure where your main purpose is in life just yet. I think what's 4 years, it's not really that long when you think about it, especially when you take into account the absolute experience that you will get out of the military. But last episode was kind of finishing off after I completed my Lance Corporal course. So I picked up my Lance Corporal, and this is mid-2011, and went back to battalion, and by then my battalion was already preparing for Afghanistan, so we was doing something what we call pre-deployment training. But I was still fresh to going back to C Company, because obviously I changed over from B Company, if you remember, and going to C Company, I still had to not any better than the blokes, but you have to kind of prove yourself as an NCO. But when you're in the military, especially in the infantry, there's kind of two kind of NCOs, junior NCOs. You'll have they think there is anyway. It's kind of like in-camp NCOs, and then you're on exercise NCOs, and the guys who think they excel out in the field, and there's guys who excel in camp, and that's kind of it's kind of like guys who enjoy paperwork and guys who don't. But luckily for me, I loved being out. I loved being out in the field. It was it was my bread and butter. I really enjoyed it. It was the best days of my life spent out in the field. I think at the time, a lot of us maybe trying to about it when you're sat in your fucking shell scrape and it's pissing it down with rain and whatever. But when we look back on those days, we really do miss them and we love them. And yeah, you just have to be good at your job when you, like I said in the last episode, you have to be good at your job when you're in your Lance track and you go back to your battalion. But they'd already been on pre-deployment training and mission-specific training, whichever one you want to kind of call it. They're a little bit different. So yeah, I went back to battalion and completely everything had changed. I changed company, we changed uniform by then. So I went back from Fighting Commanders course, and we changed into our MTP kit. So we went from our green DPM into MTP kit, which was a bit of a shame, because on the green kit we used to be able to go and find your tropical kit and stuff like that, and blokes used to get bollocks for that. But green kit was much better than the MTP kit. I didn't enjoy the MTP kit as much. But yeah, pre-deployment training. So the aim of battle procedure is when this takes place. We will always learn it. The aim of battle procedure is making sure that the frontline soldier can be launched into battle with minimum fuss, knowing exactly what he's going to do, how he's going to do it, and what fire support he's got to do it with. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that everybody across the board has at least a minimum baseline knowledge of many subjects. Across the board, they have to know what's going on. So just for example, when you start PDT, you start on the base level. You go from going on your ranges, and that will be as an individual. So you start on your basic shooting, passing your shooting test as an individual, and then you go on to moving as pairs, so how you move in contact as pairs, and then you go into moving in fours and then sections, and then you build on to platoon and company attacks. And this isn't within a day. This can take weeks to build up to those kind of things. So you're either out on the ranges or you're on exercise, and you're talking I'm not sure exactly how long they've done for pre-deployment training. I think I'd end up getting around three months-ish, but I'm pretty sure they spend around, it's probably, all in all, you're probably doing around a year, but it's more like 6 months of exercises, ranges, and, all systems go kind of thing. But it's when you this is the the PDTs when you get your SOPs. So SOPs would be like your standard operating procedures, which is everyone needs to know how each other is going to operate, and there's always a set way of how you expect to do things with certain things, and that goes from the highest level all the way down to a section level, and that's your time to iron out the creases, make sure everyone's singing off the same song sheet. And I went back and I joined in Salisbury, so I went straight to Salisbury and joined them there on exercise. And by then we had already had all the attachments with us, so everyone's already there. Normally when we go on exercise, it would just be us lot as an infantry unit. But when we go on pre-deployment training, you end up having all the TA lads were there. We had like artillery lads that were working like drones and any kind of assets like that. It's a much slower exercise. It's not like normal exercises, because when we go on exercise as a battalion or rifle company or platoon, they're much faster. You're doing like attacks most every day, multiple attacks. Whereas when you go out on pre-deployment training, it's the chance for the whole battle group or battalion to work as a whole network. So then there's a big system that has to take place when it goes into conducting operations. So there's much more spaced out, but it's much more realistic as opposed to when you do go on tour. And when it comes to like mission specific, it's our chance to, I think some guys get sent away and do like some pretty cool courses. I think one of our guys did get sent away. He went and done like a dog handler course, which is one of those courses. Normally sometimes someone would come out and they'd be like, I've got a motorbike course for you, and stick your hand up if you want to go on it. And it's a classic, and there's some fucking new bloke would stick his hand up thinking he's going to get a motorbike course, but it wouldn't be. It'd be going to sit with a fucking colour boy all afternoon down in the stores and counting fucking blank magazines or something. But some cool courses got done by there. I think it was a chance for guys to actually go and get like their quad courses and stuff like this, any kind of vehicle quals they needed to get, drive qualifications, gunner qualifications. And then we done, some guys get selected to go away and do like mission specific. So for example, we have like a point man. He's going to be like the man at the front of the patrol, normally like one of your most switched on privates. Not like the biggest bloke, he's normally just a switched on bloke who doesn't have to be told every single step what to take. They'll go away and do like a Valen course or a search team course, so that'll be like how to use the Valens properly, and then they do search teams. So within a company, like a certain platoon might be delegated to be like the search platoon. So when you conduct an op, that platoon would be the search platoon, and then the other two platoons would provide security. So yeah, it's all completely different to like normal battalion life when you go into that kind of training. I think just that period alone, even if you didn't go on tour and you're just in the pre-deployment training, you elevate as a soldier. We end up doing things like mission-specific mises in like compound clearance. So normally when we're training in the military, or when we go on exercise in Brecon or anything like this, so when I come off my Lance Corporal course, for example, you do village like building clearance normally. So normal buildings, same as what you probably live in right now, clearing out a normal house with a roof, windows, etc. But obviously when we go to Afghanistan, the buildings are different. They're clays, the walls, they haven't got a roof, like where you're going in. So the way you approach the building's different, the way you enter the building's different, and then also we train for the threat of IEDs, so then you have to go through IED clearance, drills, when it's on finding IEDs as well, which is a hell of an experience for guys. Like my point man, Dan Taylor, was a point man, and it was always so important to just never put stress on them, in those kind of situations. You've got a private soldier, probably like 20 odd years old, and they've found a bomb, and then they have to go down on their front, and you have to confirm it yourself before you can call anything in. So then you have to go down on your front, and you're an arm's distance away, slightly just brushing away bits and bits of sand until they find it. And for a young man to go and do that day in, day out is just, you're asking so much of such a young soldiers that do that. But as I say, they're normally the most switched on blokes, and they get put under so much pressure every day, and they think that kind of pressure gets overlooked. So physically before tour, like I was in Brecon, so I got away with like not doing like the start build up of being in battalion. But I know they were doing. Obviously, we carry so much weight when we were on tour. Just our body armor alone weighs maybe like 18 to 20 kilos, I think it is. You got two front plates which are like 7 kilos or something like this, and then you got 7 each, and then you got your side plates 3 each. I think it's like 18 kilos just in your plates, or 20 kilos just in the plates. And then you got your ammo, you got 3 to 5 litres of water per man, you got any kind of specialist equipment, which is going to be like your ladders, your stretchers, your med packs, ECM. So we'd never really carried ECM when you go on exercise, which is your electronic countermeasures. They come in different colours, so I think it was like 5, I think there was, and 3, and they are, well, when we went on tour in 2011, they were stupidly heavy. They went from the old system into the new system, but we only got the old system and the blokes were chuntering like no tomorrow because it was so fucking heavy on top of all the kit they already had. I think ECM Blue was like something stupid like 25 kilos, and it just comes in a massive day sack. So you got that, and then they got other kit on top to carry, you know, plus rations, anything else that you got to carry. Your helmet on top's 2 kilos on its own, and then also you're going out on patrol for every day, anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. Maybe you do two 3-hour patrols, 2 4-hour patrols, but you're out on patrol for hours on end, and it's not like fast moving patrols unless you're getting contact. But the contacts probably made the patrols go faster, to be honest with you. I think when we went out on patrol, and it was like 4 6-hour patrols of slow moving, and if you didn't get in contact, you'd fucking feel it, you know, long ass patrols. But when you go out and you get in contact and you have it for a couple of hours and you get in a good old firefight, it's like time flies when you're having fun, I suppose. But no, fucking hell, it really does. It's like you don't notice any of the weight on your back when you get in contact. You don't like you don't notice any of the sounds as much. Like nothing's really as loud. Like it's loud, but it's not as loud. The only time it was ever loud for me, like really really loud for me, was like if it was ever like next to your head. But like in general, if you like didn't have ear defense on in the ranges, for example, back in battalion, it would be fucking loud for your ears. But when you're on tour, and as soon as you get that adrenaline going, like it's not that loud. But when I first obviously got back, and obviously when I started settling into C Company, I had to kind of change my mindset, because before I went on my Lance Corporal course, I was all set in my mind that I was going to be going on tour with all my best mates from B Company, the guys that I joined battalion with and stuff. You know, like they were my best friends. You know, I didn't really know any of the other lads as much in any of the other companies. I knew a couple of lads from C Company and stuff because we'd done range packages together as companies, like B and C Company at the same time. So managed to get to work with a couple of them then. So I think that helped in a way, just because they knew I wasn't some bellend turning up. But yeah, I had to kind of change my mindset. And then when we went on tour, it was like I was thinking about like all those guys so much, but then it was like I couldn't really think about them and be like, I hope they're okay. But then you know, and eventually it became, you know, just thinking about just my guys, because before tour I was thinking like I was so worried that I was just going to be completely worried about all of them every day and not being a Lance Corporal within B Company. And I remember when Tom got hit, and when in Afghanistan, when somebody gets hit, or when you're on tour and somebody gets hit, they call op minimize, which is like so you're not allowed to use phones, no internet, no nothing, until like whatever news has been released or whoever's been relevant people have been contacted. And I remember being sat. We was up at A Company at the time. I was in C Company. My multiple got attached to A Company, and we was up north with them. And I remember when it happened, I went over to the ops room, and I remember just sitting outside the ops room and just waiting for hours, just waiting for hours, just not knowing who it was, and just. Oh, it was a terrible moment, but you know, it's like that's nothing. Obviously, fucking hell, nothing compared to what those boys were actually going through. But it's just like. Yeah, I don't know, it's just a hard one, you know, obviously to change company straight away, but I do believe it should happen. I think changing company is pretty key after looking back. I think going from a private to a Lance Corporal, especially in a rifle company where you really are in amongst the, not saying that support companies aren't obviously, but if you're like a mechanic or something like this, maybe it's a bit different. But in the infantry, I definitely do believe changing company is the right thing to do when you go up the next rank. Only as a junior NCO, obviously, don't think changing company after that. I think from private to Lance Corporal, then change rank. But after Lance Corporal onwards, you don't change rank. Maybe if you obviously go up late entry, then you'd be changing as an officer regardless. But we deployed. got that famous bus journey, so you don't actually say, you thought it was all going to be like the movies and stuff, you know, like say goodbye to your girlfriend at the airport, fly straight out to Afghanistan, but it wasn't. It's quite a little, like a bit of a slow process over a couple of weeks. So you go on leave, you say goodbye to your family, your loved ones or whatever, and then I flew back to Germany, and then you go from Germany, get a bus ride from the barracks to the first airport. Fucking crazy for me. It was just like weird energy, maddest bus ride you'll ever do anyway. But once you kind of like get on the flight and stuff, you like get on the journey, you nerves, my nerves kind of went anyway. To be honest, it was more like I went from being nervous into just being like fucking absolutely buzzing for it. You know, it was what we trained for. I was fucking looking forward to it so much, and that's where it come to like that being careful what you wish for, all that kind of good shit that I come into. Because I remember like thinking when I was on that bus ride, or just generally before Afghanistan, and you're thinking and you're hoping for contacts, because you know you just want to have it. You know, you've seen all like the war videos, you've seen all like the tour vids and from guys before, and you hear blokes talking about it, and you just kind of want to. It's what we trained for every day. You know, just two-way ranges are just a little bit different when we actually get there. But we flew from Germany to Cyprus, and then stayed in Cyprus for a few hours, and then from Cyprus we jumped on a big flight to, that's when you fly into Camp Bastion. And I remember we got on the plane, and they give, it's a civilian, I think it was civilian, or like they're dressed in civvies anyway, but the stewardesses, and this poor girl, I felt quite bad for her, to be honest with you, but I did make myself laugh. Obviously it was like fucking hundreds of blokes just full of this whole plane on the way to Afghan, and then the stewardess was giving the brief, and it was obviously if you need to inflate your life jacket, then blow it, and the young bellend and me fucking went, blow it. I made myself laugh, but she was so embarrassed, bless her. I do apologise, I'm sure she's not going to see this, but it was very funny for me and others. But so when you're flying into Afghan, as you're coming into land, they turn all the lights off, and you go flying in dark. And you think it's a little bit like you don't know what kind of you're landing into. Like if you've never been on tour before, but like when you land in Bastion, you kind of realise that you're in a bit more of a. You're in Camp Bastion was relatively safe. I know they got whatever stuff, but you could relax there. I knew that much. It wasn't like that, so you could definitely relax. So when we landed in Camp Bastion, we get off the buses, and obviously the army loves an acronym, and. The buses that picked us up, there was loads of buses turning up, and they had RIP written on them, like RIP. And unless you've done like a promotion course, then it's you don't really use these, because then you don't actually give orders yourself. But once you give an orders, you understand that RIP actually stands for relief in place, which is what we were, relief in place for the people that were coming off tour. But the blokes that obviously hadn't done anything like that, they obviously get off, and the first thing they see is buses picking us up that say RIP, and to them they just see rest in peace. There's a bus taking us from fucking picking us straight up with that on them. But you get to Afghan, you get like a week. I think we had like a week to acclimatise, and then you do like a range package at the same time. So that's when we got to fire like bigger weapons like 66s, anything like this. You get to re-zero all your weapon systems. And then there's obviously back bastions built in Afghanistan, so there's actual villages. They're called Calais, so it's like an actual village that we can get to practice on their buildings, on how we clear the buildings, how you move through the villages, etc. Without it being back in Salisbury and made out of tin huts or Wrigley tin, you know. It's the first time I ever had a nosebleed when I got to Afghanistan. It's the only nosebleed I've ever had. Just stood there fucking talking, and then my nose was popped. Firing, I think I stood next to Mike Dutton when he was firing HMGs. It's like you get to fire like big HMGs, you get to fire GMGs. You don't really get to do those kind of weapon systems in battalion unless you go into like support company. But yeah, it's fucking decent. It's banging experience. They're like a good week. But you get to do rehearsals, and I think if I was to say anything to anybody that's in the military right now, is rehearsals are key. Like just. You couldn't do enough rehearsals. I know we'd done so many rehearsals when I was in the military, like relentless, like loud rehearsals, noisy, and then you do quiet rehearsals. But if there's anything that I was going to say when people go on tour, if you're going on tour, is rehearsing what you do with your stretcher and your stretcher straps. like everyone thinks they can get stretcher up really easily and they can do the stretcher straps, but the one thing I've heard so many stories about on Kazivacs is stretcher straps. Like we kind of didn't mess it up, we just didn't do them up, and obviously then Jay nearly fell off, and then it was I've heard stories so you get hard stretchers like talon stretchers, and then you get soft stretchers like lightweight stretchers, which are like basically just like a big waterproof sheet, and then you've got long ass strings on the end, like long ass tapes on the end, and those tapes are probably like 2-3 meters long. So if people don't tape them up first, like, and get them enough so they can put them however they want over their body to carry the stretcher, like 4 on each corner, then people end up standing on them and tripping up whilst mid Kazivac, you know. And I've heard that story, I think 2 or 3 times I've heard that story, and then you also experience on exercise. But it's just one thing, it's just rehearsals, you know, do them loud, do them quiet, and don't make your privates feel like they can't ask questions during rehearsals. There's no stupid questions when it comes to anything like that. If there's a question, then ask it. But yeah, once you've done that week, you deploy into the ground, and that's the fucking moment you live for, when you fucking when you're all lined up on that on the airfield, you know, and your Chinook's waiting for you, and then fucking give you the nod, and you all stand up and walk over towards your Chinook, and you just want, like, you got AC/DC playing in your head or something like this. Bit of Guns N' Roses, like Welcome to the Jungle, just singing out. But nah, it's just a really sick moment. It's like fucking good memories, you know. And it's just there's so many parts of tour that you think about, that I think about personally, and I think, oh, what a fucking experience. Like and it was really the best days of our lives. When we think about, like, those days, they really were incredible. And once you're on tour, there's no feeling like it. And that's the part that guys miss, you know. I think we call it a bit like sandbox syndrome, me and Liam used to call it, just because guys do miss it so much. But yeah, that's all for today. Booked the first veteran retreats this week. The dates are booked. I'm going to be releasing them within the next 2-3 weeks. It will be available to be confirmed. But yeah, exciting times. It's all going ahead. I said I'd be doing it by Q2, and I'm doing it. It's going to be in June, but they'll give exact dates in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much.